All right, well, I think we can go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned, we're streaming this live on Facebook. So hello to everyone who's watching us there. I'm so excited to be here tonight to have this outreach meeting for our comprehensive master plan update. We have a consultant that we've hired from the city to help us through this process. And so I'd like to introduce Josh with Hassel Levine to take us through this meeting.
Okay, thanks, Jenny. Appreciate it. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. And again, I want to say hi to everybody who's viewing this on Facebook as well. So we're participating both in the Zoom room here and also you can participate via Facebook. To start off with, I want to just walk through our agenda very briefly. We'll go around, we'll do some introductions of the planning team and the people who are on the call. And actually with that, I'm just going to quick pause and let Nora introduce the Spanish interpretation hotline if you need that.
Buenas noches a todos y bienvenidos a esta reunión pública virtual. Para aquellos de ustedes que quieran escuchar la reunión en español, por favor marquen el 720-386-9023. Una vez que estén ya conectados, por favor procedan a marcar el código 104091 y la tecla asterisco. Gracias.
Thanks, Nora. So it will introduce the planning team. We'll go through a little bit of an overview of the planning process, introduction to what a comprehensive plan is. And then we're going to do something fun. We're going to do some issues and opportunities polling. We're going to use a live polling software that'll allow you to vote from your computer screen, whether you're participating via Facebook or here in the Zoom room. We're going to take a moment for some feedback from the Facebook comments. And then we'll go to a breakout room discussion. So this will be a small group discussion that won't be streamed live on Facebook, but we will reconvene and tell the larger group a little bit about what we were talking about.
Josh,
after that,
before you move on, I believe Maria has her hand raised. She may have a question.
Sure. Yeah, Maria, how can I help you?
Lo siento, es que no había visto el número en la pantalla y quería que lo repitiera, pero ya lo tengo, gracias.
Sorry, she's... Go ahead, Santiago.
I am so sorry. I hadn't seen the number that you published on the screen, but I see it now and I'm going to dial it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Maria. Thanks for being with us today. So then we'll close it out with next steps. I think this whole thing will take about an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and a half, and hope to have a lively discussion and a good group tonight. So just to briefly introduce you to who I am and who I represent, we're Hassel Levine. We're an urban planning and design firm based out of Chicago. I'm here with my colleague Mika on the line today. We have a core team of 4 people from our office working on the comprehensive plan. But when we work on a comprehensive plan, we bring the expertise of our whole firm to the project. So everybody in our office will be tapped as needed to work on this. Like I said, we call ourselves an innovation-based urban planning and design firm. We really pride ourselves on creativity, collaboration, delivery of quality, and we do comprehensive planning all over the country, ranging from site plans to larger comprehensive plans like this one. And we have a lot of experience working in Colorado. We've completed several Colorado plans, and we're there so often that we sometimes not so jokingly say it's almost like our second home for some of us. Each of the logos that you see at the bottom here, those are some sub-consulting engineering firms that we're working with. They each have offices based in Colorado. I think all 3 of them right in Denver there. And really that's an important thing to do, to bring local technical knowledge to bear on the project like this. So we're working with tool design for bike and pedestrian transportation. We're working with JR Engineering for general overall transportation. And then we're working with Tetra Tech on infrastructure, facilities, and environmental planning. So what is a comprehensive plan? If you're just tuning into this process, what do you need to know about a comprehensive plan? It needs to communicate the city's vision, the goals and objectives, and it needs to be a blueprint for future land use at its most basic and serve as the basis for the city's regulatory framework. So even though a comprehensive plan often has a map with colors on it, it's not the city's zoning and development regulations. It's more of a guiding document that illustrates where the city wants to go with its future land uses and with its future vision. So it needs to reflect the input of the community. That's why we're here tonight, because we want to touch base with the community as we work on this, especially for a plan that's a long-term vision. It needs to reflect what the community wants for its vision. It has to transcend councils and boards. You know, there's elections and turnover, and we're looking at a long-range document looking out to 2045. What could the city look like in 2045? So when you think about that, this document has to think beyond current staff, mayors, councils, boards, and it has to provide a line of continuity that can be a lasting document that's usable for staff, elected and appointed officials, and for developers and residents to come into the future. Oh, I'm sorry. Jumped ahead there. Another point about this comprehensive planning effort, this is going to be followed closely by a separate transportation master plan, as well as a separate parks, recreation, and golf plan. So the comprehensive plan is going to inform both of those, and then those are going to come out of this process, and then also an economic development strategic plan. But the transportation plan and the parks, rec, and golf plan, another reason why we have those engineering sub-consultants on board with our team. Just to touch on the planning process, if you ever talk to the founder of our firm, John Houseel, he'll tell you that whatever kind of planning you're doing, whether you're planning a wedding or if you're planning for a city, a plan has to do three things. It has to establish where we are today. It has to create a vision for where we want to go in the future, look towards where we want to go, and then it has to illustrate how we get there. So even though this process is in 8 steps, the where we are today part of the process is really steps 1 through 4, the whole first line there of those boxes. Even though we've done planning all over the country, we don't come into Colorado with a Colorado plan template. We need to start from the ground up. And today, we're not coming with recommendations for the city from our back pocket. We need to hear what the issues and opportunities are in the community today before we can start offering recommendations. The where do we want to go part of the plan, the vision, goals, and objectives, number 5 in the boxes here. These need to come out of community outreach as well to know where the plan should go as you're looking towards 2045. And then how do we get there? That's when we finally start drafting the recommendations in steps 6, 7, and 8. Development of the plan recommendations, its policies, its core elements. When most people think of the comprehensive plan, that the recommendations that the city follows, that's what you're thinking of. So culminating in step 8 with the final comprehensive plan document and adoption by the city council. So the next thing that we are going to do, all that said, we need to start thinking about what we're hearing from the community. We've conducted some similar outreach and exercises with a few different groups locally. We're working with a comprehensive plan advisory committee made up of citizens and stakeholders. We're working with a technical advisory committee, and we also did a workshop with the city's planning commission and elected officials. So we started to hear some issues and opportunities already that are occurring in Commerce City, and we put together this polling exercise that should be a fun exercise to do, kind of based on what we were hearing to start with. So what you need to do is you need to go to pollev.com/HLplanning962. If you're following along on your computer screen, you can open a new browser tab and do that. If you have your phone in front of you and a computer as well, even better, you can do the polling on your phone and you can follow along on your computer. So again, the web address is pollev.com/HL-planning962. So I'm going to kick it off with an easy one. What is your favorite Colorado team? And this is to get you accustomed to the polling exercise. So what you're going to do is you're going to click an icon, and then you'll see a couple arrows appear, and you can scroll. You can use the arrows to move your favorite team up and down. So on the screen, if you're just listening in, we have the Avalanche, Colorado Rapids, very local to Commerce City, Colorado Rockies, Broncos, and Denver Nuggets. So not only are you kind of picking your favorite team, you're also picking your favorite sport. So I'll just give everyone a chance to get oriented. Okay, good. A little local pride with Colorado Rapids rising toward the top and then overtaken by the Denver Nuggets. That's in line with my favorite. I'm a basketball guy, so that's probably what I would vote for myself. So that's the mechanism for the rating and ranking questions. There's also going to be some questions where you'll just be picking one, and that's a little easier to do. But this is the most complicated format for the polling. So they're not all going to be about sports. We're going to move on to some questions about Commerce City now. Okay. So to kick things off, we're looking at Commerce City's housing and neighborhoods. So I'll read the question and the answers just in case anybody happens to be dialing in by phone only. The question is, the biggest issues facing housing and neighborhoods in Commerce City are quality of housing, lack of affordable housing, property maintenance, lack of housing options, homelessness, and rising costs driving out residents, or other. And I do, if you're voting other, what I want to hear is chime in the Facebook comments if you're following along online, or in the breakout rooms. I want to hear why you chose other and what you were thinking when you chose other. So this is always fun to watch these votes start to come in and the different bars start to rise. This is a bit of an unusual race here because other is pretty steadily in the lead, but what we're seeing in number 2 with 22% is a lack of housing options. In conversation, what we'll want to drill down in is, are we talking about housing size? Are we talking about a need for more rental, larger homes with larger yards, or sometimes it's housing options for smaller homes or attached homes or something like that. So housing options, people want to be able to get the right home that's attainable to them at their stage of life. So good. Lack of housing options. Then lack of affordable housing is following up that one with 17%. And we'll hopefully get at the other in our breakout room discussion. The focus for economic development should be improving, and this is a ranking question, improving easy access to local goods and services, the impact of industrial uses on the community, a mix of local industries, business friendliness, business attraction and recruitment, workforce development, or is it something else? We're talking about the focus for economic development should be on improving what? And again, if you're following along on Facebook Live, feel free to go to pollev.com/HL planning, and you can be /HL planning 962, and you can be voting right along with everybody else here in the room. Getting a lot of others tonight. Well, again, we'll have to drill down on that. But right now, easy access to local goods and services is, okay, that's moving toward the top. People want to be able to shop and spend money where they live. You want it to be convenient. You know, you don't, especially for everyday necessities, you don't want to have to go too far to access the things that you need. I think more and more people are shopping online, but there's still those immediate needs where you want a good local commercial node that's easily accessible to your home. And you also want to spend money in the community where you're living. Looks like business attraction and recruitment is also kind of neck and neck there. So again, a city needs a mix of residential, and you also want to be able to attract and retain good businesses along with good residential areas. So, all right, we'll move on to the next one here. Give me just a second. Sometimes there's a little glitch in the. I think this one's on the focus for community culture, character, and identity. The focus for community culture, character, and identity should be, and that, again, this is a ranking question. So connecting North and South Commerce City, we've heard a lot about that. Arts and cultural amenities, community image and reputation, historic preservation, the character and appearance of your commercial areas, the character and appearance of your industrial areas, and the character and appearance of your neighborhoods. What should the focus for the city's community culture, character, and identity be? And again, there's an other category as well. Okay, so we're seeing historic preservation is floating to the top. Sometimes or oftentimes a city's oldest buildings are its most irreplaceable, and they mean something to the community. So when we talk historic preservation, we're talking about historic neighborhoods, historic commercial buildings that give the city its character and identity. And there needs to be an effort to preserve these. It doesn't just happen naturally. So that's a good one. And then connecting North and South Commerce City. This is something that we heard over and over again. If you live up in the northern part of the city, or you live down in the southern part of the city, there can be a bit of a disconnect. We've heard both mentally, where you don't always think about the other part of the city, and physically, it can be a little bit of a hassle to get from north to south. So these are two that we've heard a lot. And appearance and character of industrial areas and neighborhoods are kind of tied for second with historic preservation. Okay, we're moving on to transportation issues. And this question is going to be the biggest issue facing bike and pedestrian and public transit. Bike and pedestrian transportation and public transit are a lack of a connected trail network, an incomplete sidewalk network, senior transportation options, access to public transportation, lack of on-street bike lanes and routes, and safer intersections or crosswalks. And then there's also another category. So what are the biggest issues? If you're trying to get around and you're not in your car, what are the biggest issues facing ped, bike, and public transit in Commerce City? I'll give the votes just a minute to start rolling in. Seeing a four-way tie there for a second. Okay, so incomplete sidewalk network. Right now, that's near the top. There's a saying that I've heard that at some point in their lives, everybody's a pedestrian. So everybody at some point is going to have to walk or get around on foot or in wheelchair or something like that. And a sidewalk network is critical for that. If you You know, you could have the best store right in your neighborhood, and if there's not an easy way to walk over there, you're still more likely to hop in your car to get there. So sidewalk network, very important to walking around and easily and quickly accessing everyday goods and services right in your neighborhood. Dovetailing right with that, safer intersections and crosswalks. Same thing. You could have a beautiful park across the street from your house, but you might not want to let your kids go over there if you're not sure about them crossing a specific busy road or something like that. So a safe intersection is really critical to getting around on foot, bike, public transit. Okay, next question is going to be looking at automobile transportation, driving. So the biggest issues facing auto-oriented transportation are traffic congestion, lack of roadway maintenance, lack of roadway connections, freight traffic in residential areas, or key intersection safety. And some of these are broader categories than others. You know, lack of roadway maintenance can contribute to traffic congestion. But what is the biggest issue facing auto-oriented transportation in Commerce City? We're going to need a few more people to weigh in to break the tie here at the bottom. Okay, so traffic congestion is sitting pretty steadily toward the top. And like I said, all of these things play into it, but there's a lot of things that can contribute to traffic congestion. Perhaps some new roadway connections are needed, signal timing. I heard a little bit about freight rail crossing at grade. So a variety of things can play into that. And again, the comprehensive plan is looking at all these things collectively. So even thinking about that connection between North and South Commerce City, if it's congested and it's hard to get from north to south, that ties together. And then a lack of roadway connections, that maybe there's new road segments that are needed to get from one part of the community to another. Okay, the type of residential development. We're moving on back toward residential questions here. Type of residential development I want to see more of in the future in Commerce City is, and we're ranking the following: traditional single-family homes, townhomes and duplexes, apartments and condominiums, affordable housing, senior housing, and workforce housing. Or is it another category altogether? Type of residential development you want to see more of in the future in Commerce City. And this is fully recognizing that some of these answers are talking about housing types, and some of them are looking at who's living in the home. So you know, senior housing, you could have a traditional single family home and it could also be for senior housing. But the question wants to get at what do we need to see more of in the future? Okay, so right now apartments and condominiums are and townhomes and duplexes rising toward the top. We do have kind of a bottleneck at the top, but I think thinking about increasing townhomes and duplexes and apartments and condominiums, a really important part of the city's residential landscape. Townhome, duplex, a great option for somebody who's just starting out their career or a young family. And I think the important thing to take away is that what a community often needs is a mix of housing and housing options that make housing attainable for people at all different stages of life. So whether you're just starting out in your career or you're a senior who's living in a single family home and is looking to age in place as you downsize, you want to have options to stay in your community, to stay in Commerce City, the city that you know and love, and you don't want to have to move out of town to find the option that suits you at this stage of life. Okay, and this is the last question for the polling exercise. Rounding it out with a commercial question, the type of commercial development I want to see more of in the future is, and this is a ranking question, retail, service commercial, so service businesses, restaurant, entertainment, office, downtown. What do you picture when you picture a traditional downtown commercial development? Or is it some other category altogether? So right now, general retail is rising toward the top, and we're also seeing a desire for more restaurants. And this is in line with what we've heard in some of the conversations that we've been having with people, is that there just needs to be more options in Commerce City. People want to be able to, if you're going to take the family out to go out to eat or to go shopping, you want to be able to do it right in Commerce City. And that's what we've heard in some of these other groups as well. So that wraps the polling exercise. And again, if you were participating on Facebook, if you weren't able to vote, go ahead and chime in the comments, and we want to hear from you what your thoughts are on these questions as we're going through these. So keep the feedback coming via Facebook, and I think right now we're going to turn it over, and I'm going to check in with staff and see if there's any comments we want to discuss that we're receiving from Facebook.
Hey Josh, that polling exercise was fun. I think it was actually so fun that our Facebook users decided to do that instead of leave us any comments.
Okay.
Hopefully over the next little bit when we go into our breakout rooms, everyone watching on Facebook, please feel free to chime in on some questions we're going to show you in the comments, and we'll collect your feedback and we'll talk about it as soon as we get back from our breakout rooms.
All right, great. Okay, so for those of us in the Zoom here, we're going to go to a breakout room or small group discussion, and we're really going to be focusing on 3 questions following the polling exercise that we just did. What are some important topics that we touched on during the polling that you'd like to expand on? Are there any key topics that have not yet been discussed or been touched on? Fully understanding that a series of polling questions can't capture everything. That's all the issues and opportunities in Commerce City. And then we're going to go to what are some priority projects and actions you'd like to see be undertaken in Commerce City. So Jenny, are we going to stay in all together, or are we going to go to breakout rooms?
We are going to go to breakout rooms, and I will send you there magically in just a moment.
Okay, great. Thanks.
If we have any Spanish speakers, if they could please raise their hand so I can get them in the appropriate breakout room, I would greatly appreciate it.
Cualquier hispanohablante, si quiere, por favor, levantar su mano virtualmente con el botón y los pueden poner en su grupo pequeño.
All right, for those of you watching on Facebook Live, our Zoom participants are going to be going into breakout rooms for a little bit, but we'd still love for you to give us feedback while they're in their 30-minute breakout room. So look in the comments, please answer the question, are there any key topics not covered in the polling exercise that you'd like to give us feedback on? I'll be back in a few minutes with our next question, but thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. I think we're back. Good. Let me just get my screen share back up here. Okay, so what I want to do quickly, we had 3 breakout rooms, is that right, Jenny?
No, we just had 2 this evening.
Just 2. So I'll go ahead and go first, and I want to just do a little recap of what the breakout rooms were, what some of the things discussed in the breakout rooms were. So in my room, we had a really lively discussion. We touched on some additional issues and opportunities. We talked about things, how there's maybe a different landscape of the types of jobs and employment that are needed in the core city versus up in the north end. We got a little bit of a deeper dive into that north-south disconnect. Talked a little bit about how Commerce City can at times operate as 2 separate cities, and that there needs to be a way for them to become cohesive areas. Difference in home prices depending on where you live in the city. So prices in the north are higher. And then we even got to things like the recreation centers. There was a perspective that they might operate a little bit in silos and they don't communicate back and forth. There's some discussion of taxes. And then a lot of discussion about the need for more employment areas and more employment to support restaurants and rooftops. So attract new businesses, you also need new jobs and you need more residents. So building up all parts of the city, residential, retail, and employment. Good perspective that back in the 1980s, nobody realized what would happen with Arsenal, and how it's 12 miles from north to south with the Arsenal in the middle, and it can be tough for somebody to be motivated to go up there if you live in the south to go get a cup of coffee at a coffee shop up north and vice versa. And then we touched a little bit on lack of a defined downtown area and how that would be a nice amenity to have. Let me see if I'm missing anything here. There was some discussion of potentially some additional health and human services that might be needed outside of what's already provided by the county or Dr. Cog. And then questions about whether there may be another police substation needed. When we got to priority actions, we really hit on 3 priority actions, big ideas for the group. So the idea for a true downtown, a place that's a draw for people with kids, families, whether you live in the north or south, that's the place you want to go when you want to get out in Commerce City and experience Commerce City. A senior center that's a distinct thing from the rec center. So a specific senior-oriented recreation center. And then addressing the issue of jobs that fit the community. There was a desire for a north side employment area, whether it's a business campus or what that may be, but employment opportunities on the north side of the city. So those are the 3 priority actions, and I'll turn it over to the other breakout group for a quick summary.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, so my group had a great discussion as well. We talked a little bit about housing in both the north and south side. So one overarching theme that we discussed was that there's different needs in different parts of the community. So it would be really important as we progress through this planning process to make sure that we treat each area uniquely and understand existing needs there. On the north side, it was mentioned that property taxes are pretty high and people look to move to Commerce City thinking that it's a great deal, but then over time, property taxes can eat away at that. Also, there's a lot of single family homes, but there could be a little bit more growth potential for apartments and townhomes. Also, the topic of bringing the north side and the south side together. We talked about targeting restaurants along halfway down Highway 2, and also possibly entertainment options like a festival after COVID or city events that could bring people together. We talked about how in the north side, there's a little bit of a lack of amenities, including a library, also shopping and retail, grocery, dining, entertainment options. There's definitely a lot of potential for that. Right now, people have to go outside of Denver or outside of Commerce City to Denver to do such shopping options and also entertainment options for the youth. So instead of just park space, to have rather small scale entertainment options like bowling complexes, movies, or arcades so that the younger population can stay in the city and not have to go out to Denver or other communities for these fun activities. Also, as we're talking about development, making sure that Commerce City's assets are preserved, including its view of the mountains and also open space in general. That was a good point that we talked about. And also in the south side, there's a need for parks, especially for children to play in, greater access to housing, and also in general, just investment and enhancements to the character of these areas, including major roadways. We talked about 72nd Street in Kearney, which is the heart of Commerce City and also Quebec Parkway. It's not treated like the north we were discussing, and if there could be more landscaping, trees, for example, to beautify these main roadways, it would definitely add to the character of the area. And when you're talking about advantages, again, the openness of Commerce City, so making sure that with the development is strategic in a sense that it provides a lot of variety for residents, but does not create redundancy in the types of uses. So thank you to my group. Okay, Josh.
Sorry about that. I lost the mute button for a second. Awesome. It sounds like you had a good discussion in your group too, and some nice specificity with some real direction on specific locations, intersections, and things like that. I love these breakout rooms because we get some good discussion with small groups that even in a scenario where we're all able to gather back together in a big group of 300, these feedback that we get from a small group like this is extremely helpful for the comprehensive plan process. I'm going to go to next steps here. Unless, Jenny, is there any other feedback or input that we need to consider before we go there?
Yeah, Josh, don't you want to hear what Facebook thought about these questions?
Yes,
because we got some great
absolutely.
responses. Actually, before I tell you about Facebook, I would just like to take a moment and acknowledge Councilmember Susan Noble has joined us. So I just wanted to thank her for her participation. So we gave the Facebook audience the same 3 questions that you all talked about in your discussions, and it sounds like you had some great discussions. So some of the comments we saw on Facebook were talking about the revitalization of communities, having kids who can't ride bikes or use strollers because sidewalks aren't present. We'd like to see more street lights, more sidewalks, safety on trails and trailheads. There was an interest in communication about what's happening with the homeless population and what's going on in a lot of the areas where people are seeing homeless Requests for more dine-in restaurants, which I think you guys heard in your breakout rooms. Maybe a fenced dog park and activities like bowling, mini golf, and the abilities to keep money in our community by having these amenities. So we've had requests for fresh food markets and healthy options for our community, focusing on air and water pollution and contamination, actions around revitalization and not gentrification, more dining activities and options up north, and advocating for resources to be allocated to neighborhoods that have been historically ignored in Commerce City. And also, I think the last comment was that the traffic on 270 is pretty crazy, which I would agree with. So thank you for everyone for participating on Facebook Live. That was great.
Yeah, great. Nice slate of comments, and glad to have multiple avenues for participation tonight. So that's good to hear. Let me see. Getting so many windows open now. Let's see here. Okay. So next steps. Online engagement's going to continue throughout this process. There's going to be lots of options for people to participate, and I'm going to give you a little preview of how you can do that from home online. We are working on the existing conditions analysis. This is that first part, establishing where we are today, is existing conditions and market and demographic analysis. So really, this is going to be an issues and opportunities memorandum or report that makes sure that, you know, as we go further into the planning process, we have a good understanding of the community that's built on things like we heard tonight, the issues and opportunities that are relevant to Commerce City, and an understanding of what's on the ground in Commerce City. So coming up toward the end of the month, we are going to have members of our team in the field, going block by block, street by street, doing land use reconnaissance to make sure that we know what each and every parcel and land use looks like in the city, so that we have a really good frame of reference that's built from boots on the ground, and that where we are today, that's going to be an important piece of this planning process as we go forward, so that we have a true understanding of the city. I want to get back over to online engagement. It doesn't stop tonight. I really appreciate this exercise tonight, but there's a lot of ways you can participate. If you're just now tuning in on Facebook and you missed the presentation, go to the city's website, c3gov.com/comp plan. You're going to find an online community questionnaire, very easy to take, user friendly. It's going to take you about 10 minutes. It's available in both Spanish and English on the website. The website itself also has a translate button, so you can click and translate it into whatever language you prefer. And then map.social, you can see what that looks like on the right-hand side of my screen here. This is an online mapping tool where you can drop these legend items, and you can pinpoint on a map where there's a community asset, where there's a development priority site, where there's a problematic intersection, and so on. And then you can also filter and look at everybody else's maps. If you want to see the map of all the community assets that everybody's saying, you can go ahead and click the star, and you can see where everybody's community assets are. If you want to see where everybody indicated that there's a problem intersection, you can click that. And the cool thing about this software is that it goes right into a GIS database, and it's data that's usable in the comprehensive plan process. So it's a spatial way for the community to provide input to the comprehensive plan. And for that, if the instructions are in Spanish already, and if you're using a browser and you turn the translation feature over to Spanish, the map.social website has that functionality built in. So every button, every piece of it, every comment will be shown in Spanish on map.social if you're using your browser translation features. One more thing that we'll be posting on the website is project updates. So we've done a series of these workshops, and we're going to summarize them collectively in total, and we'll be posting the summary on the website as well. So project summaries, that existing conditions and market and demographic analysis report, and eventually vision documents and draft plan components, all those will be available on the website as they go through the staff and comprehensive plan advisory review process. So we want this process to be very open, and the website is the way that you can keep tabs on it. So please do that. If you're sitting there and you're thinking what a great conversation we had and how much fun this was, go back to one of your friends or family members and please ask them to take the community questionnaire and to participate in map.social, because this feedback is important and we want to consider all of it. So I think that's all that I have for you tonight. Again, c3gov.com/comp-plan. Please use that website, and I really appreciate the participation both on Facebook and in Zoom. And thank you all for coming out and spending part of your evening talking about Commerce City. I think this is going to be a great plan for the city. Thank you.
Everyone, I'd just like to echo what Josh said. Please tell a friend. Please let your neighbors know. We'd love to get feedback from absolutely everyone in Commerce City who works, lives, and plays here. So thank you so much for everyone who participated tonight. Have a wonderful evening. Go to the website.